Well, his work might have been halted because of the coronavirus, but that just means he's got a little bit of time to give to Trekzone. Mr. Doug Drexler is standing by after the opener to talk about his work on the Orville.
Across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts and YouTube, this is the 8th season of A Trekzone Conversation with Matt Miller.
Alrighty, Willie is here on Skype, continuing our coronavirus isolation 5 days a week podcasting. Mr. Doug Drexler, it is an absolute thrill to have you back on the show, sir.
That's my thrill. The thrill is mine.
I was just looking at Skype and the last time, and this is a reflection on me. April 2018 was the last time you were on the show.
Really?
And a lot has changed since then.
You know, I remember the first interview I did with you was over at that studio.
That's right.
And I think that Rod Roddenberry was right after me. I ran to Rod.
That's right. Yes, he was. Yeah, that was when I very first started podcasting.
Yeah.
I didn't do things by halves. I went to a TV studio and everything else. And you cost me a lot of money on that satellite for that first interview.
That was pretty jazzy.
Thankfully, it was just the beer economy back then, so it was all good. But as I said, things have changed in the few times that you've been on the show, and now you're even more excited with the latest work that you're getting to dive into. You're revered in this production office. I know that for a fact. Tell us what you're doing now.
Well, I just lead such a charmed life. I'm on Orville now in the art department. I've kind of left visual effects behind me at this point. We lost Gary a couple of years ago, Gary Hutzel, and I had been doing visual effects with Gary for 13 years. And without Gary, I just didn't want to do it anymore. Visual effects is really, really a hard job. It's on the level with when I was doing makeup effects. And I enjoy working on a computer and creating images and stuff like that. And I did about 2 years at Foundation Imaging before Gary and I got together on Battlestar Galactica. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But then Gary asked me to come to Galactica. And, Gary was just one of my buddies that I just enjoyed and I had known since like third season of Next Generation. And there was just no way I was going to pass that up. And the thing about Gary is that as hard as things would get, we always had fun. There was always a lot of laughing, So I had a wonderful time with Gary. But once he was gone, it was like, well, you see, the thing is that from the point where I got involved with Gary doing visual effects business really changed. I mean, we were kind of blazing a trail, and we had a small, tight-knit group of people, maybe 15 people doing effect shots. Since then, visual effects has evolved into a lot of visual effects houses. Zoic, Zoic had been around for a while, but they sort of like Pixamotos or Pixamo. The thing is that it became a place where, when you visit it, it looks like the FAA. It's just screens as far as the eye can see, and people are all hunkered down, and they're not allowed to talk, and they're just looking straight ahead at their work. And at these places, usually if you're a client and you go, they don't want you to talk into the artist. They try to keep you away from them. And it was just not an environment that I wanted to be a part of, And the art department hasn't changed. It's still like a club, a small, tight-knit group of people who get to see each other every day, have a lot of fun. And when I was in the Star Trek art department, I had a fabulous time with Mike and Denise and Herman and John Eves and stuff like that. And I really didn't think that I could have anything like that again. And when I was fortunate enough to go to work on Orville, well, who would have ever guessed or believed it that I would be back in the bosom of a wonderful little group, like a clubhouse of people that laughs all day long and just wants to do a great job. They probably would do it for free. So I'm having my fifth childhood. I've gotten to do a lot of things and in a lot of different facets, illustrator, scenic art, visual effects, makeup, And, when I look back over my whole career, I think probably as much as I love working with Gary, art department was probably the one that appealed to me the most. And to get to return to that and become part of a family again, probably the hardest part about going to work on Orville was kind of starting over. And you just don't know what it's going to be like. You could end up, and I know a lot of people this has happened to, you could end up in an art department where the production designer and the art director are nasty, or they don't want you to have a good idea, or there's a lot of ego going on. Well, Stephen Lineweaver and Robert Strohmeyer, production designer, art director, are two of the most wonderful guys. And I've just lucked out again. It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm doing really what I really feel like I'm meant to be doing. This is the kind of show I should be on. It's like geared to me. It's in my DNA. And I'm just having an incredible time on the show.
Well, how does working on the Orville compare to Star Trek?
It's slightly out of phase from what I had done spending all those years on Star Trek, because environment's a little different people in charge, different tastes, and in that respect, it's challenging. But I'm to a point on the show where I'm completely relaxed. I feel like Stephen and Robert are really happy with me. When I was an illustrator on Enterprise, that's a hard job. I don't envy John Eves always being an illustrator, because it's one of the hardest jobs. It's not even a matter of whether you had a great idea or not. They just want to see as many ideas as they can until the drop dead point. As a scenic artist, they're not as focused on what you're doing. If you're an illustrator and you're doing ships of the week and stuff, they're focused on you. Not that we don't have to go through an approval, process as a graphic artist. We do. But there's less of a laser beam focus on what I'm doing. And what happens is that Robert and Stephen know what I can do. They know that my experience goes outside of graphics. And so they will throw me things here and there when the illustrator's on the show. When they get jammed up, they might ask me to design something. And that's as put on my illustrator hat, which that's the way I'd rather do it. If you're the illustrator, you're expected to do something and hunker down and do it. If you're the scenic artist and they bring you over to do some design, it's like you kind of, it's a bonus for them. It's probably just me, but I feel less pressure as an illustrator coming at it from the side. Now, I used to do that on Deep Space Nine. Herman knew that I could draw and stuff like that. So here and there, he would throw me stuff to design. And because of that, I always felt the pressure was less. I'm sure it's probably in my head. It's all in my head.
Well, can you give us any insight into the third season of Orville? Obviously, it's found a new home on Hulu.
They've really, really upped their game this season. I'm utterly blown away by the new sets and everything. The visual effects department is doing an incredible. Brendan Fayette, who's the visual effects supervisor, of course, we hit it off right away. And he brings me in and shows me stuff and occasionally asks me for my opinion on things, because he knows that I have experience. He said to me, though, he goes, when I was like 10 years old, I was watching The Next Generation. The crazy thing is that there are a lot of people on the show who I either worked with previously, like Andre Bormanis, or and to have those people there who already know me is wonderful. But then there's a bunch of younger people on the show who grew up on the shows that we made. And so one of the nice things about getting old is that you run into people who grew up on shows you worked on, and there's a certain amount of respect and awe that you get because they feel like you had something to do with their becoming who they are. Of course, I can't talk about some of the cool stuff that is coming at you for season 3. But
at some point,
who knows when?
Over.
We're about halfway through season 3 as far as shooting. Holy cow. I've seen a lot of stuff. You know that. Between all the Star Treks and Galactica And if anyone would be jaded, it would be me. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff, amazing work. The stuff that they're doing this year, I just, gobsmacked numerous times while working on the show. What a thrill. What a thrill. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know I was going to continue to keep having fun like this. Lucky guy.
What's it like to walk back into the office? Well, not walk back into the office, but walk into the office. You did say that, it's a new show for you, so it's a new vibe, some new people, but there is a lot of Star Trek pedigree in the show, especially behind the scenes. Is it just like a reunion? Is it like just going back to work as it was all those years ago?
Very much. Very much. Of course, the dynamic is slightly different. We have Seth in charge, who is amazing. I mean, think about it. This guy records records. He does Frank Sinatra style crooning. He writes. He directs. He produces. He's also doing like 2 animated shows at the same time. Holy! I mean, he makes me feel like a chimp or a white rat or something like that. It was like, I mean, what? How does he? It's just amazing. When you have different people at the top, it's a slightly different flavor of production. He's a wonderful guy, so we're having a wonderful time. And the thing is that, you got Brandon Braga there, there are people there who are telling the kind of stories that I like. Orville is bright and sparkles and wonderful personality, a sense of humor about itself. I feel very much at home and feel like Gene Roddenberry would like it.
It is a wonderful tribute to Star Trek. Getting everyone back on board, it really does feel like we're just continuing the voyage of the Enterprise D and the next generation, really. Just that bright, happy future. And I guess that really translates into the office as well. Yeah. When you're telling these happy stories, it's I've seen some of your Facebook posts and there's a whoopee cushion, I believe, that lives in the office, or it goes around to chairs.
There's all kinds of silly stuff going on.
Gaffer taping people to chairs as well.
Yeah, if you follow me on Facebook, you know that the shenanigans that used to go on in the Star Trek art department, the goofy things and the pranks, and it's kind of continued. I got to Orville. We have a lot of funny people on the show, and I'm irreverent and like to have fun and play tricks on people. I think you probably saw the picture. I saran wrapped Patrick Beale. He illustrates props for the show, and I saran wrapped him to his chair. But it's just offbeat, crazy stuff like that makes everyone have a good time. We have rubber band fights, and it's, but I've worked in some art departments between Orville and as I started, leaking back into graphics again, where it's very, very serious and you don't fool around, and where you'll have a production designer who wants to see everything you're doing every second, to the point where it's like, get your phone and take a picture of your screen so I could see what you're doing, That can, every production designer has a different style and a way of doing things. But, Stephen and Robert have an environment that's very warm and fun. I can't wait until the season is finally on the air and I can start posting stuff and talking about things and relating some of the funny stuff. And I'm looking forward to that. I hope. I'm afraid, unfortunately, I'm afraid that we're probably going to be locked down for a few months. I think it's at least a few months. But I'm looking forward to seeing my friends again. I really miss them all. Once again, all I can say is that it's remarkable to be in a situation like this. Once again, Tom Constantino, producer, editor on the show. He and I have a close friendship at this point too. See, now there was a guy who grew up on the shows that we did, and when I first met him, I think he was even a little tongue-tied to meet me, which is crazy. But he's a great guy. He's just a sweet, wonderful guy. Sometimes I have to admit, I feel like a celebrity working there. When they bring people through the office, at least half of them want to stop and chat with me because they know who I am. And Robert Strohmeyer is always like, "Oh, for God's sake.
Get some work done, Drexler.
What is it with you? Get back to work." And any people who followed me over the years know that on every job I've been on, I have this giant banner that says variable gravity area, which when I was a makeup artist, I saw it on Next Generation. Michael Kuda had it in the hangar bay. And when we were on Dick Tracy, I asked the PA to go out and get a big banner made for me on like a school bus yellow with black letters that said variable gravity area. And just to have in the lab for fun. And I've taken that with me every job I've been on since then. The visual effects department, and that's up there in the Orville Arts Department. When I sent the PA to get it made, I gave him a note that said what I wanted it to say. And this is Southern California. We've got aerospace and stuff like that going on here, a lot of tech. And he took it to a Kinko's, a printing place that makes signs and things. And he gave it to the guy, and the guy reads it. It says variable gravity area. And he looks at it and he goes, what's this about? And the PA said, "I can't talk about it."
There have been times in the past where circumstances beyond control have forced productions to shut down in Hollywood. There's been a couple of writer strikes, but nothing to the scale of this current outbreak of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. What's it like over there in Hollywood? Because I know Hollywood started shutting down a few weeks before pretty much the rest of the world. I guess it was sort of recognised that there's this problem. And it's part of the problem of being on set and being close with everyone and all that sort of stuff. I feel terribly for all those dating reality shows, The Bachelor and all that sort of stuff, who can't do anything for 12 months. But what's it like on a drama show where it really isn't sort of, and I'm in the newsroom here in Australia, it's not really this ever-present sort of danger. It's this hidden thing that God knows who's got it and how they're going to translate it. What was the sort of feeling like when the decision to shut down came down from on top?
Well, we kind of knew it had to happen. About a week or two, a couple of weeks before the shutdown happened, I was washing my hands every 2 minutes, I like to hug and shake hands and stuff like that. That had to stop. And it was funny though that you could tell on the crew who listens to Fox News, because you'd go to bump elbows and they go, "Oh, you're not falling for that, are you?" And I'm thinking, okay, I know you're Fox Newsy. We all kind of knew that it had to happen if it kept accelerating the way it did. The announcement was fairly sudden, but it was no surprise at all. It's very unreal. You feel like you're in, like I said, a science fiction novel or some kind of altered reality. It just does not seem real. And I hope we get out of this, without too much heartbreak, although I'm afraid that there's going to be, I don't think there's any getting around that.
It certainly will change the world forever.
Oh, God,
from this point on. It's incredible to think, and I've talked about it a couple of times in previous shows in the last couple of months, that you sort of don't have an appreciation for just how an industry is affected unless you're in that industry. Aviation is a bit more open. We can see that the planes aren't taking off as much, and the skies over France. I saw a Facebook post yesterday that there's something like 900 less aircraft over France in a day. 12 months on. Hey,
it's funny. Not funny, but Avengers Endgame. I think of it often when I think about what's happening to us right now. And you wish there was some superhero who could just say, I'm Iron Man, and snap his fingers and put it all back.
I think they're going to be the scientists snapping their fingers when they get that vaccine out.
Yeah, well, they're going to do it. Of course, Dorothy and I are, we're hunkered down. I've been out of the house in 3 weeks. I'm over 65. I do have asthma. So, of course, people are dying who have no underlying, health issues and are in their 40s, or 30s. But when you talk about how the airplanes aren't flying, and I always think of that scene in Endgame where Captain America comes in, Cap comes in, and he sees Natasha, and he says, "Well, I was coming over the GW Bridge and I saw a pod of whales, and the water is was so clean. And she says, I'm going to hit you in the head with a peanut butter sandwich. But the thing is, I've seen pictures on the internet of Venice where you can see down to the bottom of the water now, and there's actually fish. And there's no doubt the air is better here in Los Angeles than it normally is. And we're not burning all the jet fuel we used to burn. I guess I'm most impressed by the people who stepped up, the amazing healthcare workers who were going in there every day, not knowing that they're walking into the jaws of death, and that they do it. There was some footage, just this morning, of the New York, which has hit the hardest, the New York Fire Department, all their trucks lined up outside the hospital, and as the healthcare workers were going in, all the firemen were standing on top of their trucks, cheering and clapping, and with signs that say, "You're our heroes." And it made me think of 9/11, where people were lined up on the streets and all the fire trucks were going down to the World Trade Center, and every New Yorker was cheering and had signs. And it brings out the best in a lot of people. Of course, then you have some people who don't seem to care about anybody, or, you know who. But, we are going to get through this. We are going to have a vaccine. There's no doubt. I mean, look at the technology that we have. And you know that anybody who has any background and expertise in this is working on it day and night.
Fantastic, Doug. Well, it is fantastic to bring you on the show, and we should do it a little bit more often than every 2 years.
I'm available whenever you want me.
It is an absolute thrill to see your Facebook posts when you are posting those cryptic messages about how much fun, and just seeing the fun, and talking to Tom Costantino as well about how much of a thrill it is to have you in the office. You are revered for very good reasons, and can't wait to see your work on season 3 when we get there.
Thank you so much. I mean,
stop blushing, Doug. Stop blushing.
I have to admit, after we lost Gary, and I was kind of in limbo there trying to reorient myself. And I would go to bed at night and think about, all the stuff I've been involved in, and thinking, well, is this, maybe this is it for me as far as, having these kind of wonderful situations. And I would think back to like the 17 years on Trek and say, well, I'm not going to see the like of that again. And oh my God, here I am again. I mean, I look at Dorothy and I say, can you believe it? It's such a wonderful opportunity and job, and wonderful people. It seems like a dream come true. And I'm so happy to be, you must know that the Orville sets are 2 decks.
Yes.
They're 2 decks. They're built 2 decks high, which is really, we never had anything like that on Star Trek, where you could go up a spiral staircase, go upstairs, to the rest of the ship. That just fabulous.
Fantastic, Doug. Well, stay safe, be well, hunker down at home. We need you back in the production office to be making season 4, or the rest of season 3, and then season 4 and onwards for the Orville. Well,
look, Matt, it's great to talk with you, and best wishes to all your listeners. And just hang in there. We're going to get through it. It's like Gene Roddenberry always said, that we're human beings, and we do what we do because we're inspired and we're smart and we work hard. And that's going to be the name of that tune.
Fantastic, Doug. Thanks again for the chat, and we'll see you again soon here on Trekzone.
Okay, Matt. Talk to you later.
And just before we go, don't forget to search for Trekzone across social media. Trek episodes on Instagram, the latest on Twitter, and the recap on Facebook. Plus, we're doing enhanced versions of the show on YouTube and releasing the audio across the podcast sphere. Search for Trekzone, subscribe, and give us a rating.